Today we're going to talk about things that drummers need to know or do before they come record in a studio.
True Sound Studios is in your ears.
Hey guys, what is up? I'm Weezna. As always, we are here at my studio, True Sound Studios, and today we gotta talk about drummers. So to give you guys a little bit of background, I've been drumming for 18 years now. I've done studio drumming sessions for Grammy Award-winning producers. I've been on record labels, and I've also done touring. Drumming is actually the reason I am here today. It is the reason I started a recording studio. It's the reason I produce music, and it's also my favorite instrument to play and perform on. So what I found is recording a lot of these bands, or even mixing some of these bands, is that there's a lot of things that unfortunately the drummers just don't know or don't do. So the whole point of this video is to get you, the drummer, to be more prepared for the studio, to play better in the studio, and ultimately just have a better sounding drum track. So this entire list will be in the description of this video so that you can very simply screenshot this or copy and paste it and save it for your next recording session. Alright guys, so let's get into things that drummers need to know or do before they come into the studio. Number 1, learn to play to a metronome or a click track. When I started playing drums, that's what you did. You played to a metronome. It helps the whole band practice rehearsing thing. You know, the song is played at the same tempo every time, and it will make your band and it'll make your recording just sound overall better. Not to mention, it is the industry standard thing to do to play to a metronome. Number 2, learn your songs. Now, I know this actually sounds funny, but there are so many drummers that come into the studio that just don't know all the parts. Either they haven't written, certain drum beats for certain parts of the songs, or they are just not sure how many times, maybe at the end of the song, you play the chorus 3 times. Just learn the structure of your track. It will make your recording cheaper because we won't have to spend so much time trying to figure out your song. Number 3, learn how to play a rim shot. Now, a rim shot is a technique used when you hit the snare drum that the drumstick hits the center of the snare as well as the rim. We are also used to hearing that big drum sound, and this is how you get that really big sounding snare drum sound without having to add drum samples. Now, learning how to do a rim shot every single time you hit the snare drum is going to take some time. So please learn this well before your recording session. Number 4, replace your broken cymbals. So you might not have the money to replace your broken or cracked cymbals, but you hopefully can borrow them from another drummer friend. Now, cymbals, when it comes to the recording, is probably one of the things I can manipulate the least. Essentially, the overheads that pick up the cymbals and the entire drum kit really doesn't allow me to really alter the cymbal sound after it's been recorded. So what does that mean? Your cymbal sound is essentially your cymbal sound. And if the cymbals are cracked or broken and you don't like the sound, unfortunately, that is the cymbal sound that you get. Number 5, learn about dynamics. So when we talk about dynamics, it does definitely depend on the genre of music you're playing. Now, if we're talking about jazz, the dynamics is crazy. Everything from little teeny tiny, very soft ghost notes to some really hard-hitting snare drum sounds. If you were in a rock, a pop punk, or some sort of heavy band, for the most part, you're going to want every single drum hit to be powerful and consistent. So many drummers don't have the dynamics thing down, and they might be playing through a chorus and they have a couple really great snare drum hits, and then they just start hitting it lighter and it gets lighter and it starts building up. And unfortunately, just because we put a microphone in front of the snare drum doesn't mean that every single one of the other microphones is not picking up that snare drum sound. The snare drum sound comes from the top mic, the bottom mic of the snare drum, the overheads, and the room mics, as well as bleed from all the rest of the microphones that are around the drum kit. All these microphones together make that big snare drum sound that you're probably looking for. If you're not sure if you have good or bad dynamics, very simply just record yourself and you can very simply look on the screen and look at how dynamically consistent you are between every hit, but mainly the kick drum and snare drum since it is the focus of the drum beat. Number 6, cymbal height. So I get it. Having the cymbals only a few inches off the top of your toms makes it easy to hit. You don't have to reach for your cymbals. The problem is when it comes to the recording side of things, having a cymbal only a few inches off the top of a tom, for example, makes the cymbal bleed into that tom mic just so loud. This is what I'm talking about. So you can hear the amount of that cymbal leaking into that tom microphone makes that tom recording almost unusable. So a great solution is to very simply raise the cymbals up higher off of your toms. The further away and the higher you get your cymbals from the toms and the other microphones will make the microphone on that particular element, you will get a way more focused sound. In the end, you will have an overall better sounding recording because you won't have so much bleed from the cymbals getting into all your other drum sounds. Now, I understand that this is going to be a setup change for you playing drums, but if I can do it, you guys can do it too. So to get the best sounding recording possible on your drum kit is unfortunately going to require you to go out and buy some new drum heads. Now I understand if you don't have the money to go out and spend, let's say $40 to $50 on, a new snare head and some new tom heads, but at the very least, buy a new snare drum head because kick drum and snare drum are the focus of, the drum beat. It will really help the overall recording. So another thing you should buy, and I know this sounds funny, but buy at least one extra pair of drumsticks. So I can't tell you how many times drummers have showed up to the studio with one pair of drumsticks and then 20 minutes later they break one of the sticks And now we run into an issue. Now we got to find a place that's open, and somebody's got to go run and buy drumsticks for the drummers. So please just buy at least one extra pair of drumsticks, if not 2 or 3 extra pairs. So the last thing you should do 2 to 3 days before you come into the studio is figure out the beats per minute, or the BPM, to all of your songs. Now this really should be done in band practice when you guys are rehearsing your songs, so that you can figure out a good tempo for each one of your tracks. This will save a lot of time when you come to the studio, so that you're not trying to figure out tempos of songs, and you can just spend this time in your rehearsal space instead of at the studio when you're paying for session time. So number 1, don't load your drums into your car the night before your recording session. The drop in temperature at night, or the increase in temperature, can really throw off the tuning of your drums. Not to mention, if the drums are really cold and then you bring them into a warm studio, it's going to take time for the drum to get up to room temperature, and then you can finally tune it. Trust me, this will just help out your drum recording. So number 2, go to the bank and take out money the night before your recording session. So many times, drummers are late to the studio because they had to stop at the bank first to get money to pay their engineer. What makes it worse is if the drummer is late, they're going to be more stressed, and it just makes for a more stressful recording situation. Number 3, oil your kick drum pedal and your hi-hat stand. So both of these are mechanical devices that chances are you haven't oiled since you bought them. The squeakiness on a kick drum pedal, or the scraping of metal on a hi-hat stand, is noise that has a potential of being picked up during the recording session. So buy yourself a little can of WD-40 and oil these things up the night before. So number 4, tune your drums, especially if you went and bought new drum heads. So to properly tune a new drum head, you need to seat the drum head, which means you almost need to fit it to your specific drum. You can watch drum videos on how to do this, and it's nothing more than putting the drum head on the drum and essentially stretching it, and then tuning the drum. Number 1, be on time. So obviously there's a ton of reasons to be on time for your recording session, but a few of them being you don't want to upset your recording engineer on the very first day of your recording. Another is that your band is probably going to be upset that you are late, and it's going to create stress and tension, which is just not good for the whole recording situation. Number 2, don't play things that you can't play really well. So what do I mean? Maybe there's a 16th triplet drum fill that you love to play, but you're really not that good at playing it yet. Don't do it in the recording. Generally, people think a great drummer is somebody who's just a solid drummer, meaning that the things that they play really well. Number 3, mixing your own drum kit. You're probably thinking, wait, isn't that what the engineer's for and the producer? So what I mean is, if you want a big kick and snare sound, but you play the cymbals super loud, you tap on the snare drum, and you hit the kick drum super hard on the downbeats, but not on any of the other beats, that's what I'm talking about, mixing your own drum kit. So if you tend to play the cymbals really hard and play the kick and snare and all the toms quieter, that is going to reflect in your recording. Number 4, the big rock sound. So if you're looking for that big rock drum tone, you have to play the drums hard. Now, if you want the big rock tone, but you're not playing your drums hard, unfortunately, there's no magical button that is going to make for a bigger drum sound without using samples. So if you wanted a very organic recording, but you don't hit the drums very hard, unfortunately, you're not going to get that big rock drum sound. So if you're used to playing really hard in band practice, play really hard in the recording studio. Number 5, at the end of the songs, don't put down your drumsticks. Now, I thought this was kind of self-explanatory, but if you're playing at the end of the song, a big drum fill, and then you hit the cymbal at the end, and then you put your drumsticks down right away, that's going to be in the recording. So what you should do is you should play that last drum fill or drum beat, hit the cymbal, and just don't move. So number 6, knowing the direction of the drum sound that you want. So generally when I'm setting up the drum kit and the microphones with the drummer, I'm asking them questions like, how big do you want the drums to sound? How tight do you want them? Do you like a lot of reverb? A little reverb? A lot of room sound? Do you like them to be really dry? These are all things you're going to need to know and have answers for, because it's going to change the way you tune the drums, or maybe how many microphones you use, or even how much of each element is going to be put into the mix. One of the easiest ways to answer this question is just find some songs or albums that you like the drum mix on and simply reference those with your engineer, and it'll make things very easy. So lastly, the last advice I have for you drummers is, if you don't like the sound of a particular drum, say something right away. There's nothing worse than tracking 10 different drum tracks and getting down to mixing all the drums, and the drummer says, you know what? I never liked that drum sound from the beginning. I know maybe you don't want to have a conversation with an engineer that you don't really know very well, but it will mean so much more if you can fix those problems right away before you get into, the 9th and 10th song on your album. Maybe you don't like the drums being so dead sounding, or they're too roomy, or they're, they sound too big, or they sound too small. These are things that can be fixed right away by moving microphones or adding microphones, and it'll really make you, the drummer, and your band happier in the end. So as always, if you guys like what I'm doing here at True Sound TV, click that subscribe button and like the video. It would really help me out. So drummers, I hope this helps. I hope this will help make some better drum recordings and ultimately make better sounding songs in the end. All right, guys, thanks for watching. We'll see you guys soon.